What is going on, everyone? Tim from Tierfon Orbital. So today's demo video is going to be a relatively quick one, right? We are going to go over an install that I completed for a customer on the Saberbay Darksaber. Now this has been installed with one of Goth3D's, Rick from Goth3D designed a master chassis for this. It's a crystal reveal chassis, so we are going to go over that a little bit. We don't have to come into Fusion. This is not my chassis. However, I do want to talk a little bit about my install experience with this chassis, and then we will do a quick demo, right? So in my opinion, of all the master chassis that Rick over at Goth3D offers, this one is probably the most painless. It is the easiest to install of them all, right? So a lot of these master level chassis, there's a lot of work that is involved in not only assembling them, but you've also got to sometimes cut threaded rods. You've got to cut brass rods. But this one, it's very install friendly in my opinion. So I had a breeze doing this one. Really no issues at all, right? So I do want to come up top, talk a little bit about the install, and then we will come down below and do a quick demo. I do not have one of the blades that was made for this hilt. However, there was a blade plug that was included with this, with a one-sided NeoPixel strip, which I'm assuming was for the blade plug. So I just went ahead and wired that up so we can see it activate, right? So anyhow, with all of that out of the way, let's come up top and take a closer look at this hilt. All right, so here it is. This is the Saberbay Darksaber. This was their offering. I think it came out a year and a half or 2 years ago. So let's talk about the outside of the hilt first, right? So the hilt does come as a kit, and you do have to assemble a lot of these greeblies. One of the things that I found when doing this particular one was a lot of these greeblies just didn't fit correctly. So a lot of I had to do some slight modifications to like these Suba greeblies. Like there are holes that are designed for them to kind of seat in, and they just weren't. They were too big, right? So I had to file down some of these parts to get them to fit correctly, and then they are just glued in place. There are, what I'm assuming, are resin pieces that are to go in this emitter, and these were all too big for these holes. So all of these had to be sanded down and worked to fit into those holes. A little bit of a pain to do this, quite honestly. I'm not quite sure why these were designed too big for these holes, but here we are, right? So these are essentially just press fit in the emitter, all right? They're not going to be going anywhere, but I did have to sand a lot of these just to get them to simply fit, all right? There are some other greeblies, like the greeblies in the pommel. These are also glued in place, all right? But other than that, pretty straightforward, okay? The switch section, so to get off your, take your grip off, right? The switch section is magnetic, so you want to go ahead and just remove this switch. So another thing, I'm not sure if it was just my kit, but I was missing a piece. So the clear switch here is essentially two pieces of resin, like resin 3D printed parts that fit together, all right? And I was missing the bottom piece. It just wasn't in my kit. Now the kit came with like 1,000 different baggies of greeblies, but I just did not have this bottom one, okay? So I actually had to design one and print one myself. So this is just the bottom plunger of that switch that I just made here in-house, right? So that is magnetic, all right? That is magnetic. I put it on upside down. Magnetic. It's in there, right? So to take your grip off, you want to remove this, all right? There is a screw here that you can remove with the included Allen key. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off. All right, and then you can just slide your grip completely off. Here's the chassis. This is done by Rick over at Goth3D. Super talented guy. Makes some very beautiful chassis. But this one, I mean, given the irregular internal diameter of this grip, designing an oblong chassis is not easy to begin with. So, I mean, kudos to Rick for getting a crystal chamber in here. It's a very beautiful crystal chamber, all right? There has been a change to this chassis. So I did one of these a couple of years back, and they had a 28 millimeter speaker. For this updated version of the chassis, it takes a 22 millimeter speaker. So this is a 22 Nano Elite from Smuggler's Outpost. And then you want to wire up your speaker, your battery, all of your wires sit down in this trench here, and then they come up to the board area, right? Now this entire crystal chamber will come out. It is held in place with magnets. So this will come out. I can get my fingernails under there. And that is where your board lives, all right? So in my opinion, I would leave the board down in here. Now I did put a small dab of E6000 down in here just to keep the board from popping up. I also protected the edges of this brass piece with some Captain tape just to make sure we don't get any shorts. But this brass, or the board rather, can live down in here, and you can actually fit a USB cable ever so gently up in here if you want to reconfigure your board and get to your SD card, right? But that is the board. Here's a closer look at that crystal chamber, okay? So really, really nice detailing in the crystal chamber. There is a resin crystal in here. Yeah, just really, really nice. It fits in there with magnets. I also added a 2020 NeoPixel strip above the board, and there is also a second 2020 NeoPixel strip in this area. And in front of that, I've got a piece of Mylar for some extra diffusion, okay? Around back, we've got an OLED screen, all right? And it is cool that you get a view of that crystal chamber on each side of the chassis, okay? So let me go ahead and get a battery for this guy. It's right here in front of me. So to put your battery in, negative side is down towards the speaker. So you want to take the flat part of your battery, put it down in that battery tray. This will take a button top 18650 battery. All right. Go ahead and put my battery in, hit my kill switch. So here are all of our 2020 strips lit. The switch is also a custom PCB that has onboard NeoPixels, so those are also lit. And then here is our OLED screen back here. I got to make sure I'm on camera. It's never hard. It's never easy to tell where I'm at. So there's that OLED lit, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put this crystal chamber back in here, or the cage rather. Everything's lit up. All right. So there's the crystal chamber lit. We've got that 2020 NeoPixel strip above the board that is also lit. We've got some accents in here. And then our switch is lit as well. Okay. So I'm going to leave the grip off for now as we come down to the other camera. So just a closer look at that chassis from Rick over at Goth3D. Very nice crystal chamber chassis. There's that OLED. Okay. Different animations for each font. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put that grip back on. It's held in place with that one single screw. And then you can go ahead and put that switch cover in place, and that's just held in place with magnets, okay? All right. Now, again, I don't have the blade for this. So I'm not going to turn the lights off or anything. But here's all the switches working. All right. Okay. We'll do one more.
Do you know Ezra Bridger, my friend?
One more.
At last we will have our revenge.
So in the config, you've got one blade config for your main blade. You've got one blade config for this switch, and you've got two more. So there's 1, 2, 3, the crystal chamber, and 4 are those 2 NeoPixel accents. Those are there on the same config, right? But that's it. That's the Saberbay Darksaber. Relatively quick video on this one. Unfortunately, I don't have a blade to put in it, but this one was a breeze to install. Again, this chassis from Rick, probably the easiest of all the master chassis that he offers, right? So, but anyhow, to the customer, thank you very much for your patience for this one. If anyone has any questions about this particular install or anything really, please do not be a stranger. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Have a good one, everybody.